little bit about my background real quick, before we start. My background is in Buddhism. I studied Buddhism in primarily Thailand, quite a bit in the States here as well, but mostly in the Asian countries, Thailand, a little bit in China and Korea. Both Mahayana and Theravada Buddhism, and I really gravitated more towards Theravada Buddhism because of the meditation practices. It was a very good, a really good grounding experience for me, to have a practice that really did a lot of meditation. When we weren't doing sitting meditation, we were doing walking meditation. I enjoyed being at the temples, and I was ordained as a monk for a while. Really enjoyed the experience, just taking in the teachings and doing the teachings and being the teachings and all of that. It was really great. My primary teacher is from Sri Lanka, Bhante Gudarantana. I've had other very prominent teachers. One of them, Matthew Flickstein, who is also one of Bhante Gudarantana's proteges, but very, very good teacher himself. And it was him that really brought to light for myself the aspect of attachment and what attachment was. His philosophy was that when we have attachment, there's he called it a wedge of attachment, something that we could actually kind of visualize and use to wedge ourselves between ourselves and that which we are going after, that which we are being attached to or grasping at. And it was, from that point where I really kind of dug into attachment and grasping and how it affects a lot of people spiritually, and everything from addictions to, just not being able to care for ourselves the way we would like to in life, maybe eating too much or just over-desiring things. I think we all have our little slice of life that we kind of indulge in a little bit too much, maybe. And these are usually the things that we call attachments and we think about as attachments. But it's a little bit more than that, and I'd like to kind of go a little bit deeper into my philosophy anyway, and it falls in line with many other people too about what my idea of attachment is, and anyway one of the methods that it can be taught. Let's get back. I want to kind of step back to the Buddha and the story of the Buddha. And this isn't going to be a Buddhist lesson necessarily. We're talking, I'm going to talk about attachment and a little bit about seeking, and then we'll have a nice, I think a very nice deep meditation. But first I want to just cover a little bit of groundwork here. We'll do the meditation and then see if there's maybe some questions or something afterwards. But interestingly enough, the story behind the Buddha, all the way up into his enlightenment, the Buddha's story is a story about seeking. It was about the Buddha looking for the answers in life. And so he was really like the ultimate seeker. When we think of the Buddha, we think of somebody that went out into the world and was looking for liberation. He was looking to end the suffering of the world and to save the people. But in reality, he was seeking for his own benefit. He was seeking for answers. He was frustrated with life, and he was looking for the answers. And as we all know, that when we are looking for something and we can't find it, it is very, very frustrating. You know, it can be painful, downright painful, especially if we've been looking for a long, long time and we just can't find it. And maybe some of us are in that situation now. It wouldn't surprise me. I meet spiritual seekers almost daily, and people that are spiritual seekers and don't even realize they're spiritual seekers, you know, looking for the answers to life. So it's not uncommon, you know. So, you know, please try to be open, you know, to this. We are all Buddhas at heart. You know, we are all seeking the same way that the Buddha was seeking. But the Buddha, he left at a very early age. He left his wife, his father's kingdom, even his newborn son. He left these attachments to go on for something else. So he was actually changing some attachments for other attachments, and the other attachments were the spiritual answers that he was looking for. And so seeking and attachments have a lot in common. A lot of times people can be attached to what they're seeking, and it can go vice versa. They can be seeking what they're attached to. They want more of something that they want, so they keep looking, looking, looking. So seeking and attachment are synonymous. They're very, very, they can be bundled up in the same group, you know, of these words that we also call grasping and clinging, you know, these types of things. But to keep things simple, the Buddha was a seeker, and he had attachments. He let go of these attachments, worldly attachments, to go find more almost spiritual attachments. And spiritual attachments can be even rougher. But long story short, when the Buddha became awake, when he became enlightened underneath the Bodhi tree, that's the other part of the story, the Buddha found enlightenment through the practice of meditation. And when he went into meditation, he vowed to go into meditation. He wasn't going to come out of this meditation posture until he became enlightened. And thankfully it worked for a lot of people, including himself, of course. And in that experience, he saw all of his past lives. So he got a chance to review all the lessons that he got, served him, and he got a chance to learn them again, and kind of relearn them, and really take another look at them. So it was a very important time for him, you know, this meditation experience. And the primary benefit is that when he came out of this meditation, he had no more attachments. He found complete liberation. He was completely free from Mara. He was free from samsara, also the rebirth. You know, which was primarily what he was looking for: freedom from the suffering of being reborn again and again into this world. And so when he came out of this meditation, he was free, as I mentioned, and he felt so good. He didn't even know what he was going to do with this. He wasn't even thinking about teaching. And then, thankfully, he made the decision that he would try a little bit of teaching and see. He believed that there were some people with a little bit of dust in their eyes that he could probably speak this truth to these people, and so that they can wake up and understand what he's talking about. And it worked. He started teaching, you know, the famous teaching, the Four Noble Truths, that we suffer and that there's a way out of this suffering. And he backed that up by the Eightfold Path and how the Eightfold Path works. We're not going to be talking about all that right now. Eventually, we'll probably, you know, touch on all that if you continue to join me on these Wednesday meditations. But this one, I would like to talk about attachments, and a little bit more about seeking. And then, as I promise, we'll get to a meditation here in a little bit. But to kind of connect what we talked about, I say we, but actually it's me doing all the talking, I guess. But I spoke on consciousness and what consciousness is, and I referred to it as like a field of consciousness, very much like a quantum field, or the torus field that we've heard about. To opposing forces, one strong, one weak, like a magnetic pole. It's a field that covers everything. And so somebody might ask, and somebody has obviously asked me this question, that do we travel from life to life in soul groups? And although I don't really use the word soul very often, I would say that it is true that we do move from life. We can move from life to life in groups. In other words, when our body dies in this lifetime and we go to a next life, we could run into the same energy types that we did in this lifetime. Maybe not the same bodies, not likely, but we might have remembrances of these people and connect with the energy of a particular person because they embodied somebody that we connected with in a past life. So yeah, I actually really do believe that's possible, and the reason that is possible is because when we look at this world the way it is now, we have to see it as everything being connected. And the reason I say we have to is because when people do wake up, when they become clear, even if it's for a moment, and I know a lot of you have had this experience, when you feel at one with nature or at one with everybody and everything, this is really proof positive that everything is connected in a certain way. And that certain way is that this field of consciousness, this energetic field, connects each one of us in some way or another, so that if we could see this, we would see strands connecting everything. And people that have done ayahuasca and things like this can in many cases see this. If you haven't done ayahuasca, I am not suggesting you do it, but you can check it out. Maybe talk to some of your friends that have done it and ask them if they've seen these strands and these strings of energy. And they will probably report that they have seen that. That's not proof that they're there, but the proof is in each one of us that we can feel this energy. Let's say when we connect with somebody, we see somebody and we start talking with them and we connect, there's like a feeling that there's a field, maybe like an inviting field or something, some feeling that is very positive between you and that other person. If you're in a group of people and everything is really going well, you can feel the same energy, the vibe, if you want to. The vibe used to be really popular back in the 70s and early 80s, but and in that same group, if there's somebody that isn't connecting with the group, somebody that's kind of standing out, there's like that connection with that person is there, but it's different. So if we could see this, and a lot of people do see energy, but if we could, each of us see it, we would see different strands, different colors, different lengths, different textures going out and reaching out to everything. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And I made the reference to like electricity last week. we can't see electricity. We know it's there. We know it's working. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to connect right now. And it's the same way with this energy. This field is really literally an attachment to everything in our world. And now, so, attachment is usually like, oh, I don't want to be attached to this or that. But the fact is we are attached. So if we have a connection to, like a mother has a connection to her sons, her daughters, that is a very natural attachment. Of course it's going to happen. If there is no attachment there to any degree, and that it's severed, that's very, very unusual. And it's usually that the connection and that energy is not severed. It's just that it's being ignored somehow. Usually from some kind of maybe dementia or something like that. But the connection is still there. And if we could see it, we would be able to prove it to ourselves. So this connection is not only from person to person, but from person to thing, and we can feel it when we're out in nature, and we can feel it when we're alone or with people or whatever it might be. Sometimes that connection can be so heavy that it's hard on a person, that we don't feel like we want to be out in public. We don't want to. We're excited about going out to the store to go shopping. Then when we get to Costco, there's so many people there. It's just like too heavy of a vibration. I'm picking on Costco because I was there earlier today, and it was fine. I was fine. The Buddha, he didn't really use the word attachment. Of course, he didn't speak English. He used the word upadana. Upadana is a Pali word that means grasping. And grasping is another word, that we can use for attachment. Attachment is we usually refer to as those sticky things, in life. And if we look up a remedy for how to remove sticky things in life, it almost always takes you to Gugon. And if we use Gugon and put it on something, what does it do? It softens up that sticky residue, and then we can wash it away. It's no longer sticky. And that if that worked in our spiritual world, that would be wonderful. And in a way, it does. And that Gugon, from a spiritual standpoint, is awareness and understanding of these things that we call attachments, or upadana. Now, upadana are what I would probably could get by to as referring as maybe heavier attachments or unhealthy attachments. Because as I mentioned, we are naturally attached to certain things. Attachments happen in several ways. They happen because of habitual patterns that we do again and again and again. And when we don't have that thing in our life, or when it's not a appropriate time, or when it doesn't seem right, it's hard on us because we're used to having it. Another way an attachment can happen is that if it's introduced by something or someone else in our life, and it's there all the time, and we expect it, we don't even realize that it's an attachment, and then when it's moved away, we are somehow broken inside. And that could very easily happen in today's society, like if somebody would take away a teenager's telephone or something like that. They've had that phone even as a toddler. The kids these days, they had a phone to play with as a toddler, as a babysitter. And so their hand, that's why their hands are shaped like this. Just kidding. But and then if you would take that phone away from a younger person, it would be really heavy, hard on them. And that's one of the reasons the retreats are good for people too, is to kind of get away from the mainstream of life and that kind of thing. But attachments can come in many forms, cars and food, cigarettes, and then the heavier things like the addictions, drugs and alcohol and the sexual addictions that we hear more about these days, internet addictions, all these types of things. And I'm not here to say that all these things are necessarily bad. I'm not even saying that attachments are bad, because I believe there's a lot we can learn from any and everything, as long as we are aware of it and understand it. So if we look at attachments like a rubber band, if we pull a rubber band, if we know that we have an attachment and we pull away from it, we keep pulling away, we can't sustain that pullingness, if we want to call it that. But if we loosen up on that rubber band and stand within that circle that the rubber band makes, and just understand what we're up against, and be very, very aware of what we're dealing with in that attachment, that can disintegrate it in such a way that it's much easier, rather than try to pull away from it. So there's two ways to clarify. There's two ways to deal with attachments. One is to do exactly what we did, is to understand it and to be aware of it and to work with it, and to learn the lesson that it's meant to be learned from it. Another way, and this is a spiritual way as well, is to literally let it go through meditation by being present. And that's probably the method that we hear of the most, is to be able to be present in our meditation. And in that presence, there is no attachment, because there is no desiring for something in the future. There's no desiring of anything in this moment to make this moment any better than it currently is. There's no desire for something that we've experienced in the past to be experiencing now, as long as we're present. And we will do that practice here in a moment. Of all the Eastern meditation traditions, the purpose behind meditation is in letting go, and is renunciation, or to surrender. And I would like to do that as a meditation first. We're going to, in the same meditation, then I kind of will guide us into more of a presence kind of practice. I think it'll be very effective. Most of my meditations are set up this way, where I do some guiding and then some more silence afterwards. And this will kind of reflect that, but the guiding will be directly related to letting go of our attachments through understanding and through awareness, and to recognize them as a part of this field of consciousness, this quantum field. And then the other latter part of the meditation will be dealing with presence, and how we feel in that presence, and how liberating it is, literally liberating and free, because there are no attachments. And when we learn to expand that and become more awake and even enlightened, as the Buddha did, through our practice of meditation, there are no attachments, and it's total freedom for us. So that's something that we can look forward to. I hope you're ready for a meditation. This will probably be looks like about a 20-25 minute meditation. I'll leave a little bit of time at the end and see if there's any questions or anything like that. So please make yourself comfortable. I hope you came here to meditate. Whether you're sitting cross-legged on the floor like I am, you can't see that, but that's what I'm doing. And or if you're sitting in a chair, that's fine. Just all that I ask is that you try to keep a straight spine and not get too comfortable, which often means not leaning against the back of a chair or the back of the couch or anything like that. If that is what you're doing, keeping the back straight kind of helps the energy flow up and down the body, and we need energy when we meditate. If I've seen a lot of people meditate and they really literally drift off into sleep, and I ring the bell and they come out and they go, "Oh, that was a great meditation," but they don't remember a single thing. And they had a great sleep. They didn't have much of a meditation, but they had a great sleep. So we don't want to do that. So we want to have energy in our meditation practice. So please, again, make yourself comfortable. Close the eyes. Let's take a nice deep breath or two. And when we do this, we're bringing our attention to the body. Working with the body is always a wonderful way to bring ourselves into presence, the stillness of mind. It relieves the mind and gives it direction so that it doesn't wander about. So we often talk about the breath, focusing on the breath, but actually we can use many different areas of the body. But when I speak of the breath, I'm referring to the body itself. So just find some nice, easy breathing. We're not trying to force anything. This is not a pranayama exercise. Our breathing is just natural and flowing. We just want to notice the breath for a few moments. And do that while I'm speaking here. Just notice the breath. We'll be doing kind of a two-sided meditation. I'll be speaking to you in the same way that I would speak to somebody that had, or that would be able to give me 100% undivided attention. And so I'll speak very carefully and try to use the most proper words I can. Try to use the most beneficial language that I can. And you never want to feel as if you have to memorize any of this material while you're meditating, and you certainly don't want to have to worry about taking notes while you're meditating. So just remain as open as you can. That's just setting an intention to be open-minded and relaxed and enjoy yourself. Listen to my voice. And any information should be retained, either subconsciously or consciously. And if we identify any attachments, it's important to remember that we're really preparing ourselves for the obvious, because we will be separated from all of our attachments at some point. And I think we should know this by now, but it helps to remind ourselves that everything that we have, we will be separated from, either during this lifetime, while we're walking and working in this world the way we're doing it now, or at the end of this lifetime when this body dies. There'll be a separation from everything that we feel that we own, everything that we care for. And this is not necessarily meant to be a sad thing, but it is a fact. And usually when we understand this and remember this, we find a new zest for life, an appreciation for life. So it can be a very, very good, rewarding thing to remind ourselves about our mortality. So each of us have already lost many, many things in this life. When we were children, we lost toys, and when we grew up, we lost relationships. Maybe some friends moved out of town, or maybe we moved. And things got really much worse when we became interested in the opposite sex. We lost relationships and had hard feelings at that time, and then not to mention some of us that are mothers and fathers, how we lost maybe some of our freedoms and that type of thing. We understand what loss is, so in that respect we understand what attachments are and how hard it can be to lose something. When we lose something, we feel bad that it's gone. That means that it was an attachment of some sort. And it usually helps to remember that if it's a relationship, that there is still that thread of energy that connects us from us to that person. It'll always be there, even if they're gone. Because this energy that we call consciousness, or this energy of life, this life force, this aliveness is alive both in the past, now, and in the future. It's really timeless. It's going to take more than the time we have left to explain that, but it is also a part of karma. And this field records and maintains the history of everything. Everything that was, is, and will be. So in reality, you're connected with everything in our universe. We're all connected. And if we could see this connection, it would look like strands, different colors, different thicknesses, different lengths. It would look like a web that we're actually moving through. Like an ocean of energy. except these strands go through the air. And we humans have the ability to strengthen these strands. And basically sometimes we do it in such a way that it is not that healthy for us, because we forget that this strand is going to change, as everything does. Not the strand, but the thing that it's connected to. Everything is constantly changing. And we can see this. If we could see these strands of energy, we would see that they're always changing, always moving about, changing color, changing form. And so when we become attached to something, we want it to stay the same. We want it to produce the same feeling for us. But it can't happen. And that's why some attachments can be very unhealthy and very much a source of suffering for us. And that's why it's important to understand and be aware that these attachments are happening, and we all have them. We're all attached to certain things in life. If it isn't a worldly thing, then it's a belief, or just the attachment to the freedoms that we have in this world, or attachment to our way of life, that we don't want to lose it. And so we will do anything. We will fight to preserve this attachment that we have. We probably don't even like to hear that it's an attachment, because it's something that's so dear to us. We don't even want to believe that it could be called an attachment, because it's so definite, something so important. But we are attached to everything. It could be physical, or it could be mental. Oftentimes it's our actions of body or mind that causes these attachments. And sometimes they're completely unintentional, and sometimes they're very much planned by us or planned by others. So we can become attached to a number of material things in this world. And we can become attached to mental objects, things that we believe. And probably the biggest attachment of all is our own bodies, for many people, or the bodies of others. Because we feel that the death or the end of this body is the end of existence for us. And that's another trick of the ego. We want to protect ourselves, we want to protect others. And this is natural. This is a natural attachment, but it's still an attachment. Good or bad, right or wrong, it's still there. So we don't have to look for more connections in the world, because they're happening without us being behind the activity. The connections happen on their own, and it's not our job to force a connection or to sever a connection. In other words, it's not really up to us to attach or detach from something, because it can happen on its own based on awareness and intention. That's why in manifestation, the spiritual law of detachment is that if we want to manifest something, we have to give up the idea or our idea of the result or the end result of our manifestation, to give up the idea of what we want as a result of manifesting something. Because if we try to make this connection, it only gets in the way. So we can't force really anything and make it work the way we want it to work. It's a spiritual lesson, or we could say that it's nature's way of taking care of things. And that's really the power that we have, is to be aware and to understand. So attachment is a word that means grasping, upadana, as I mentioned. Upadana is a Pali term that the Buddha used as one of our stages of developing, and that is the reason that we are here now. We are here, born into this world, because of our attachments. When we died in our previous life, there was something in mind that wasn't complete, that we had, something drew us into the next rebirth. And it was a strong enough attachment for us to be reborn into this world. The result is that we are here right now meditating together. And this is the law of rebirth. That attachment is enough for us to have the karmic consequence of coming into this world again, having another rebirth. When a person dies at the end of their life and they die an awakened being, there is no more attachment and no more rebirth. And all of these are simple lessons that we can easily remember as we go out throughout our days. Very easy to work with our attachments when we keep these things in mind, that everything is a flow of energy. Everything is connected, and that's why we get introduced to these things, good or bad. whatever they might be. Because we're always connected with them. If we have an attachment to something, we can lessen that attachment, but we'll still be connected to it. We'll still be aware that it's there. It might not affect us anymore. We may not crave it and desire it the way we did, but it'll always be there because of that connection. These are just the lessons that we must learn in life so that we can grow. Bring your attention to the breath. And again, when we bring our attention to the body, we're coming into a moment of presence. And I must remind you that in this still presence, there is no attachment. There is nothing needed to make this moment any better than what it currently is. No desire for things to be different in any way. If we're truly present. And see if you can feel this within the body, within the mind, this presence, and see how it feels for you. And this is the training ground. This is where we practice here in meditation. The idea is to be able to take this out into the world with you. 2 ways to deal with attachments. The first way was to understand and be aware of them, as we just got done doing, and the next is to rest in the still presence at this moment. See how that feels within. Keep focusing on the breath, which means some aspect of the body. No concerns about the past, no desires or yearning for the future. The key in being able to let go of attachments is to do it without force. And what that means is that we're actually giving up any kind of control. We're renouncing the idea that we have to be in control of this change. It might sound paradoxical in many cases, but attachment is really the desire to control how we feel about that thing which we are attached to. And if we give up our need for control, we're actually giving up our need to be attached. When we let go, when we surrender, what we're letting go and surrendering of is the control itself. And see if you can feel that presence. And feel that freedom from attachment, that freedom from the uneasiness and the feeling of incompleteness that it can provide for us when it's not dealt with. I invite you to take a couple of nice, little deeper than normal inhalations of the breath. Bringing your palms together in front of your heart center if you like. May each one of us and all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May no harm come to us. May no difficulties come to us. May we all meet with spiritual and worldly success. And may we have the patience, courage, and understanding to meet and overcome any problems or difficulties that we might face in life. Thank you all.